Brexit, Istanbul, and Orlando. So now let's take a quick look at some footage.
They know there's plenty going on up there that's wrong.
Would you consider, among those other things you just mentioned, a ban on assault rifles? And here's the argument. They're a weapon of war. They're not a hunting rifle. They appear to be the weapon of choice for terrorists, as well as the shooter of kindergartners, first graders in Newtown, as well as movie theater goers in Aurora. Why not ban assault weapons, as Hillary Clinton just called for recently on our show?
Well, first of all, there are millions of them already out there, millions upon millions. So they're already out there, number one. And I absolutely wouldn't, because people need protection. They have to protect. So the bad guys will have the assault rifles, and the people trying to protect themselves will be standing there with a BB gun.
Can you think of an instance where somebody on the good side used an assault weapon?
She's the wrong person. She's the wrong person at the wrong time. She doesn't understand the issue. She's weak. She's ineffective. She does not understand the issue. And she would be absolutely the wrong person. But she wants to bring 500% more people in from Syria, 500% more coming into this country, pouring into this country. And I'm saying we cannot take any more people from Syria right now. We can't do it. We can't even think about it.
You were tweeting quite a bit yesterday, and among your condolences to the victims and the family members of this shooting, you also stopped to tweet that you appreciated the congratulations you had received for your stance on terrorism. And later you issued a longer statement. It said, I said this was going to happen, basically congratulating yourself for predicting another terrorist attack. To a lot of people, that struck them as unseemly, that at this moment that 49 people lay dead, you were focused on yourself and giving yourself congratulations. What do you say about that?
It's totally false, because you didn't read the second part of the tweet. I said, well, I appreciate, because I've been receiving tens of thousands of tweets, literally tweets and calls and letters and everything, because I've been the one that predicted it, and I'm the one that said what you should be doing. And I don't want the credit. And I said in there, well, I appreciate your nice statements.
But at the same time, you're calling attention to the credit you received.
I want you to be strong. What I said is, I want you to be strong. I want you to be vigilant, and I want you to be smart. I don't want the credit.
But
I don't want people to tweet that.
But by the very nature of stopping and saying, but you did stop and say, oh, I acknowledge and collect your thanks. And then you later say in this statement, I predicted this, which in fairness, literally everyone predicts that there will be another terrorist attack. There's no one who doesn't recognize that that's the world we live in.
No, because he certainly doesn't do much about it in terms of intelligence, in terms of.
But why are you giving yourself credit for predicting something that everyone knows will happen, sadly?
Oh, I don't know that everyone knows. I'm not sure that the president knows, if you want to know the truth. He won't even use the term radical Islamic terrorism. I think he thinks everyone's just a sweetheart. He won't even use the term radical Islamic terrorism, which I think is insulting to our country, and it's insulting to everybody. And if you don't use the term, if you don't describe what's happening, you're never going to solve the problem. He will never solve the problem.
Real quickly, to that end, recently, just this morning on a different network, you said about the president, he doesn't get it, or he gets it better than anybody understands. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are a lot of people that think maybe he doesn't want to get it. A lot of people think maybe he doesn't want to know about it. I happen to think that he just doesn't know what he's doing, but there are many people that think maybe he doesn't want to get it. He doesn't want to see what's really happening.
Why would that be?
And that could be because, Savannah, why he isn't addressing the issue, he's not addressing the issue. He's not calling it what it is. This is radical Islamic terrorism. This isn't fighting Germany. This isn't fighting Japan, where they wear uniforms. These are people that come out, and you have no idea who they are, and he doesn't want to discuss it. He doesn't want to properly describe it. And if you don't discuss it and describe it properly, you're never going to solve the problem. He'll never solve the problem. He's never going to solve the problem. He doesn't even want to call the problem what it really is.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Donald Trump, thank you for calling.
All right, welcome once again to Our Eye on America. It's a wonderful day here. Of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Vision Entertainment and Ken Harris and Associates. It's a great day, obviously. So excited to be here and talk about topics relevant to our community across the country. Today is a very, very special day, of course, for us here at Our Eye on America. It's Tanya's birthday. So just want to say happy birthday to Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you.
so wonderful, so beautiful, still got it going on. So, you know, we have to get to some very, very interesting issues today involving Donald Trump. Of course, the Donald is now the presumptive nominee from the Republican Party. We're down to two. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament. You started with a big field, and you narrowed down to two, and you've got Donald on one hand, and then you've got Hillary Clinton on the other. You may have a libertarian candidate on the other end who probably won't factor in too much. The polls are now showing that Hillary Clinton has a lead over Donald Trump. A few polls say a couple of points. Now, I saw a number of other polls that say she's up 6 or 7 points. And then there are a few polls that actually have her up by double digits. So she is expanding her lead. And a lot of it may have to do with the way that the Donald has handled himself. You know, Tanya, is very interesting. Donald Trump may be his own worst enemy concerning this election.
Absolutely. And with some of the new things that he said here lately, that clearly shows why Hillary's taking that lead over him in the polls.
Well, you know, of course, you're talking about Brexit.
Yes.
And his comments concerning Brexit, and then you're talking about the issue that evolved relative to Istanbul and Turkey, the airport attack, which was so violent and so tragic here recently. So we've got two opportunities for Donald Trump. Donald had a chance to respond to the Brexit issue and then the Turkey issue here in the recent past, but he also had an opportunity to respond to the shooting deaths in Orlando. And a lot of people indicate that or feel that he failed in all three circumstances. So let's just quickly take all three, talk a little bit about the Donald and where he's at now concerning his campaign. I want to start with Orlando.
Yes.
Because this is the largest mass shooting in United States history. And you typically have a presidential candidate or a president take time when we have these massive tragedies to think about what happened, focus first on families, and then respond in a presidential way to the crisis. Donald Trump immediately came out and said, and took credit, said, "I told you so. I knew it was going to happen."
Yeah.
And that really served as a distasteful reminder of his personality to so many people.
Not only that, but he was so cavalier in his response. He's showing over and over again his ineptitude, in my opinion, of being able to handle such a huge responsibility of leading the United States. Yeah. Over and over again, he clearly shows his lack of experience.
Yeah, and a lot of people felt like he showed a wholesome lack of sympathy.
Yes.
For the victims in Orlando when he came out, and the first thing he was to say, "I knew it was going to happen. I told you that another terrorist attack would occur." It just showed a complete disregard for the victims and their families. And he's created a scenario, I think, through that where there are people out there who simply will not vote for him under any circumstances. I think there was a poll that came out right after the Orlando shooting and after his reaction, and it said that 70% of Americans are in a situation now where they just absolutely don't feel like he would be a capable president, but they just don't want to vote for him. They don't feel like they can vote for someone like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. The numbers are amazing, but I feel his ego has taken over. And so his decisions and his thoughts and how he responds are all motivated by his ego.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned ego. He's an accomplished business person, but he responds to a crisis in a way that is very personal.
Yes.
And it's almost like he's going to respond in the way he wants to respond, regardless of any advice that he gets.
Absolutely.
A lot of it may also do with age. People don't realize Donald Trump would be the
70,
oldest.
70, right?
Yeah, 70 years old would be the oldest person to be elected president of the United States. So that's an interesting dynamic as well.
Maybe a bit of senility.
Yeah, exactly, which we'll talk about in a minute. Maybe some issues there. Yeah. Let's talk about Brexit, because Brexit is a word that we've heard now, I guess, for the last couple of weeks. A lot of people don't know what Brexit, means at all. And
the British exit from the European Union.
from the EU, exactly. A lot of people don't understand the EU obviously is a union of European states, including states like France, Italy, etc., that have political and economic ties. They have sort of dissolved the borders there, so there's free passage between these European states.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the United States, actually. The goal was to have one economic and political unit so that you could use all of the equities from the individual states and be a powerful unit. I think they control 7% of the world's economy in the EU. And so always has been a very powerful union. But then Britain decides that they no longer want to be a part of the EU, and it's caused great instability, not only in Europe, but in the markets across the world, because now you have this big partner in the EU saying they're going to step away. And not only is that a problem for the EU itself, it may be a big problem for Britain, Great Britain, because they've relied on this free trade and these partnerships and this political unity to be a part of a stronger force over many, many years. So now that Great Britain has decided to step out, people in the United States are queasy because Great Britain is one of our great allies. And they may find themselves in a weakened state politically and economically because they've stepped away from their partners.
I think Britain was feeling a bit of lack of control and that they were invisible.
Yeah. I think some of the folks who voted for Brexit felt like they were invisible. Some of the minority individuals in Great Britain felt like their voices weren't being heard. The question is whether or not this reaction is overkill, because by removing themselves from the EU, they actually hurt themselves.
Exactly.
So that's why we're having a little bit of buyer's remorse. And they're talking about maybe reversing the referendum now and staying in the EU. But Donald Trump's response to Brexit was very unusual. He was in Scotland at the time that all this went down. It was a remarkable opportunity. Being there in Europe for him to be presidential and talk about what happened and how, from his perspective, this would affect the United States, or how the United States could affect what was happening in Europe. Instead, he talked about his golf course. He took these reporters on a tour of his golf course. I wanted to ask you this, Tanya, when I looked at the press conference he had on his golf course in Scotland, it appeared that it wasn't so much about him prioritizing his golf course. I don't think he understood what Brexit was all about.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. He sidesteps a lot of issues because he doesn't understand.
Exactly.
So he falls back into what's comfortable, and that is himself.
Exactly. And that's how it appears. And so it's an interesting dynamic. You have someone there who's supposed to be an expert on world affairs, who doesn't appear to understand world affairs. He sidesteps it, but people still haven't quite caught on that that's what he's doing. Which brings us to Istanbul and Turkey.
Yes.
You had a very tragic attack.
40 people lost their lives.
Over 40 people lost their lives at one of the airports in Turkey. Very, very complicated situation. Turkey, of course, is an ally of the United States. But then you've got complications relative to Turkey's relationship with Syria and Assad. A very, very complex scenario for anyone to understand. And when Donald Trump was asked to comment on what happened in Turkey, he really didn't have any meaningful response other than to say it was a tragic situation, it's sad, and then he sort of insulted us all by saying, when will the world understand what's going on? What does that mean? When will the world understand what's going on? Is he the only one who has the answer?
No, he falls back into, again, his comfort level, and that is tapping into what's happened in the past and reacting in that manner, the old regime, if you will. He doesn't have, in my perspective, forward thinking. He's not a visionary. So when he looks at issues, he looks at them from a traditional methodology as opposed to how can we do this differently or better in the future, which is what we would need from a great presidential candidate.
Exactly, and you mentioned the term great presidential candidate. Great presidents listen to their advisors. It doesn't seem like Donald Trump either has the willingness or the capacity to listen to his advisors and learn about world affairs. It doesn't seem like he's interested. He's more interested in getting in front of that mic and, like you say, relying on the old Donald Trump, regardless of whether or not he understands the issues or not, coming with those same old talking points, and he tries to fit those talking points to any crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here again we see his lack of experience.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to his lack of experience, his lack of willingness to acknowledge that there are different ways to deal with situations by advising on his counsel, which he doesn't do. So for me, it gives me still an uncomfortable feeling about him even being at the position that he's in right now.
Exactly.
It's
Scary that he made it
very
this far.
scary, very
All right,
scary.
well, the question is, as we get toward the end of the segment, is whether or not, kind of interesting question today, whether or not we can give Donald Trump an upgrade, because we gave him a thumbs down earlier. Can we upgrade him based on all of the things that have happened in the United States over the past couple of months, or all the things that have happened concerning world affairs over the past couple of months? Can we actually say he's done better? He showed a more comprehensive awareness of what's going on in the world? Or do we have to give him another thumbs down and say, hey, look, the Donald is still failing?
Yeah, the Donald is still failing. And I am a strong supporter of giving props where props are due. And unfortunately, we've had 3 recent incidents that really support that there's a lot of work to be done. So unfortunately, still a thumbs down for me.
All right, and on my end, you're talking about Orlando, you're talking about Brexit, you're talking about the situation concerning Istanbul and Turkey. I'll give him a thumbs down on all 3, his reaction relative to all 3. So as we sit here now on our Eye on America, we still give the Donald a big thumbs down. All right, thank you for tuning in. We've enjoyed it. Obviously, we're going to keep our eye on current affairs and keep you updated. Look forward to talking to you next week. All right, a great Our Eye on America this week. Next week, it's all about the legacy of the great Barack Obama, one of the greatest presidents of all time. We'll see you then.